us on the mic, talking life and what's alike. Middle age, it's quite the ride, finding joy and chasing pride. Career dreams and daily grind, funny moments that we find. Letting go of yesterday, making paths along the way. Middle age.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Trav.
Dude, can we talk about the fact that we are doing a season finale of season 1? That's kind of crazy.
It's really crazy. When we started, we said we thought maybe we'd only get 1 or 2 episodes done. And we actually pulled through with 12 and are now on 13, which is pretty sweet.
I know. And some amazing guests, too. I think that was one of the bigger accomplishments in all that. You're totally right. Obviously, there's the totality of 13 episodes, but there's also 10 of those 13 have amazing guests. And kudos to you for finding some amazing people, and I'll pat myself on the back as well for a couple of them too.
It goes both ways for sure. And I think that's what we talked about when this whole thing started, was that, it's how do we find these amazing folks who are doing really, really cool things and help amplify their story. So I'm really proud of our effort to do that. And a lot of the feedback I received was how much people enjoyed just hearing from the many different individuals and industries that they represented.
Totally. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I felt like some of the insights I figured we might find, but then others were just absolute surprises. It was just like, wow, okay. So I really feel like we got our hands dirty in that sense, in a really good way.
Yeah. So the goal today is to kind of wrap it all up, right? We're going to try to not take too much time, but just really, maybe reflect on some of the key moments from the first season and kind of archive our work together. And maybe at the end of this, share a little bit about our plans for next season.
I love how you foreshadowed a teaser. That's great.
Thank you. So, Trev, maybe we can start with some analytics. You're much wiser than I am on multiple levels. In addition to the fact that you have, control of all of that stuff, how did we fare as it results to some of our listeners? What do the numbers tell us?
Well, okay, I'm going to preface this a little bit, if that's okay. First of all, I want to just say the analytics, I'm kind of a data spreadsheet nerd. I really enjoy that kind of stuff. This was a big surprise for me this season in the sense that I didn't really know the type of feedback and the type of info you could gather just from doing a podcast. So I'm still very new at it. I'm still, learning to digest the data, and I try not to get too wrapped up in it because I think we'll talk about this later. This isn't really why we got into this. We weren't trying to hit a certain number. We didn't really have a goal. Like you said, we were just kind of hoping that we'd get through a couple episodes and see where it went. So this is all kind of extraneous information that is kind of interesting. And one of the biggest things I think we can take away is that Apple Podcast was by far the most popular platform. Just so everybody knows, if you're not listening on Apple Podcasts, we put this out as an RSS is what it's called, through various different things, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all kinds of different stuff. So if you're finding us on one of those, that's not a surprise to you. If you're finding us on Apple Podcasts, you're probably more the norm than the exception. And on Apple Podcasts, we had 1.3 plays, 1.3 thousand.
Oh,
yeah, you wish.
It wasn't billion.
So 1,300 plays.
Okay, can I pause real quick?
Yeah.
I think that 1,295 of those are mine, but
do you just have it playing on a loop in the background?
It's filtered throughout my house on the speaker.
That ought to drive your kids nuts.
It does. That's my goal.
So we had 45 on just Apple Podcasts alone. Again, this is just Apple Podcasts. We had 45 engaged listeners. And what that means is that they played at least 20 minutes or 40% of an episode. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. Overall, we have 84 listeners, and we have 32 followers, which is really good in my opinion, because I think you can get quite a few people to listen to something, but to actually like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff is very different.
So is follower synonymous with subscriber?
Yeah, pretty much in Apple Podcast terms, yeah.
Okay.
And then just as a brief overview, outside of Apple Podcasts, we had 683 plays on the other various different platforms. And one of the cool analytics too, and this should come as no surprise given some of our guests, but one of the cool parts of the analytics for me is that it will tell you where people are. It's not going to, don't worry folks, it's not going to give us your address or anything like that, but it will tell you like what country you're in, what city you're in, so Tim and I have not gotten competitive on this yet, but I will tell you that Tim's listeners in the New Jersey, New York area are kicking my butt
Wow.
in terms of Ohio, but I bring up the rear a little bit with Los Angeles listeners. So
I have a lot of people who owe me a lot of favors.
time to cash in. Get them to subscribe.
That's
so yeah,
wild.
there's some, and look, you can go down wormholes like crazy, and it's really very interesting. As a person who, like I said, I really like data, and I also, I tend to produce content in general for my profession. So I find all that very fascinating, and I always have. But to see it on a personal project is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Can I say one or two things quickly about that?
Please.
One, I want to say, I think in some ways it's even more impressive given the fact, and I'm speaking solely for myself right now, social media is not a friend of mine. I have never been good. I mean, I just joined Facebook about a year and a half ago, frankly, as an adult.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I was never on Facebook, and I don't actually ever open that app. I know that you get mad at me from time to time because I don't, fool around on Instagram as well. And we are not, excuse me, I shouldn't say we. I am not an expert in any way whatsoever in using those resources as a tool to further market, this effort between yourself and myself. And I think in some ways, for me, it's all about word of mouth. And I think in some ways it's kind of cool that we got that many people, given the just the bare bones approach that I know I have taken. You've done a better job of that, and I really have a lot of respect for you for that, and I appreciate your effort there.
You're
so I just wanted to kind
kind.
of point that out.
No, you're being too kind there. To be honest, I really approached this from the standpoint of I wanted the show to just kind of stand on its own for a little bit. And obviously I'm happy to promote things and use, like you said, Instagram and other things are great tools, but we've kept it very simple for a reason. Like this is something that we do on the side. Obviously those tools can get extremely vast and very time consuming, and we really have not done too much of that. I've been kind of purposeful in not doing that because I think it's very consuming. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that's with season 2, maybe we adapt that a little bit, maybe have a little bit more fun. I'm learning the tools of podcasting as well. So like there's a lot of different things that I think would really blow our minds that we just haven't gotten into yet, but we can,
Yeah. I'm curious, how often did you get upset at me when I requested the link for the meeting a minute or 30 seconds before we were about to meet?
I'll tell you something funny about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the same link.
Yeah, I know, and I kept requesting it.
But I never got angry with you.
Oh, you didn't? Well, that was very kind. Thank you. All right,
I've learned over 43 years to be very patient.
Yeah. Fair enough. So you alluded to this in the beginning, but we had some incredible guests on. Let's touch base real briefly here on some of the major takeaways from this season. Excuse me, takeaways or themes. What stands out to you?
One of the things that stands out to me is to never lose sight of the impact that you have on people. And some people are put kind of organically in that position to be an influence on people's lives, like your parents, like obviously you're going to be an influence on your children for good or bad. But there's other less organic versions of that, that I found. One of my biggest takeaways is as I listened to all these guests, they had people that were influencing them in such a positive way. And I wonder, I'd be very curious to know on the other side of that relationship if those folks even knew the impact that they had,
Yeah. That's such a great point. And I think the answer to that is probably no. Right. We collectively don't do a great job of telling one another how much they mean to us, which is unfortunate. Myself included. I'm guilty.
Totally. Me too.
I want to point out the role of the educator. That was such a dominant theme throughout so many of our conversations, was people referring back to, particularly, I think, or at least more so in early education. Not to discredit anybody along that path, but I think a lot of people pointing back to early educators and the influence they had in their lives, just the profound impact that they had on the trajectory of these people's lives and who they were. And that was just really, really cool to hear, and just such a shout out to all the people out there who dedicate their lives to helping to, educate and take care of kids. Just an amazing profession. So that was a big takeaway for me.
I hope some educators are listening. I hope that some of those few people out there that are listening are educators and they know that they're valued, because I do think that often goes unspoken. And, I'm sure, like any job, but I'm sure there are very unique stresses to that particular profession. It, probably more so now than ever. And, I hope that they feel heard or seen.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, we know our moms listen.
Yeah. See, there's two educators right there. So it kind of goes hand in hand with educators, but partners. People mention partners a lot, and I don't think that's necessarily a profound observation per se, but it does speak to the foundational support you need in being the successful people that we've had on. And you and I are no exception to that at all. Obviously, we have a whole segment about awesome wives, but it's so foundational in terms of support.
Yeah, and I think what stood out to me along that line is that it was often during times of trial or transition, right? That's when those people really shine through the most in a lot of ways. That, we had guests saying, hey, I was really trying to figure out what to do at this point, or I really felt a need to do this. And my partner was the one who helped push me through that and carry me. And that was cool, man. I mean, that resonated throughout throughout all of our guests. They spoke to that. So that was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing that it was kind of a common thread among our guests was that this was the first podcast they've done. I think we only had one person, Alyssa, out of the whole run that had ever even been on a podcast before, or ever even been interviewed about their job or their life,
Yeah, that was interesting to me, because I think you and I spoke about this early on, right? Well, everybody does a podcast, right? Like there's billions of but then the more I kind of stepped back from it and thought about it, I actually don't know anybody who does a podcast. I mean, outside of Alyssa, I don't know anybody else who does a podcast. I don't know if you do.
Nobody that's like an everyday person. Like I consider you and me everyday people, right? I know that you're more famous than me, but no, I don't know any everyday people that do it. I know some people who are more in front of camera as their profession and they do it, but which makes total sense, obviously. But no, I don't know any everyday folks. So that's a very good point.
Yeah. Well, I think those are really great takeaways from season one. I mean, I really do encourage people to go back. I just loved, there's just so much insight and wisdom in the people that we brought on. And it's just a really awesome thing to kind of have that now, sitting in the, I don't know what, digital universe or whatnot. I don't know what you would call it, but really, really honored to share that experience with you, Trav. I mean, we kind of started talking about this way back when, and it's just been really cool to kind of to experiment through it and learn as we go. I've learned that I need probably a better microphone.
Season two.
But Trav, I do have to give a quick shout out to you as well. For kind of just helping to push this thing forward, and for all the expertise that you've brought to it. I think one of the things that meant a lot to both of us, and we talked about this, was the opportunity to just connect through something, right? To try something new and to experiment together. And it's just been awesome to have that time to share with you. And I'm just always so impressed with what you do with this and with everything else in your life. And I've learned a lot from you. So I'm really grateful for that.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And I want to acknowledge that as being something incredibly nice to say. So thank you. The other, and I know you mean it, so thank you. The thing that I'm going to toss back to you is I feel the same way. And one of the things that I've found or kind of rediscovered in this process is you and I have known each other. We've talked about this before on the podcast. You and I have known each other pretty much our whole lives. Like, I don't really have a time in my life that I don't remember knowing you. That's how long ago it was. And one of the things that I've always valued about our friendship is that we might go a while and not talk. Yeah. But when we get back in a room, it is like no time passed at all. And one of the things that I've loved about this experience is being able to have this, and almost, you should never need an excuse to talk to a good friend, but this has been a really good excuse. Yeah. And it's one of those like, hey, I actually have a reason to bug Tim. So I'm going to go bug him, and like, I really I've always valued our friendship. I've always valued you in my life, truly. But it's one of those things where it's like, this absolutely exceeded my expectations in terms of something fun to do with Tim. That's cool. So, if there's any takeaway there, and look, we could talk about it as like, oh, only our moms listen. I don't really care. Like that wasn't the point. Thank you for fulfilling that whole thing.
And I think that's so foundational, right? I mean, that we started together at such a young age that, those sort of relationships, they just don't change. At the core, they're very special. So I'm lucky to share it with such a terrific guy as yourself.
Thanks, man. Feelings mutual.
And I just want to be clear when you say that when we're back in a room together, just so everybody's aware, most of the times what happens when that actually physically, because we're in separate parts, but when we're back in a room together, you're talking and I'm vacuuming.
Part of the key is that you don't listen to me. That's why it works so well. And I'm sure, we don't get Christy and Kristen in the same room together enough as it is, but I can only imagine the eye rolling that occurs when you and I don't even notice.
That's so true.
So I have a question for you. You posed this a while ago, and I'm going to push it to you to answer because I have a feeling you have a really good answer for this. What's something from season 1 that you've learned about yourself in this process?
Well, I learned I don't want to talk about hair care anymore. And I don't necessarily want to talk about my relationship with Abby anymore either.
You're done for those. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yes, for the dog. So, what did I learn about myself? I mean, I learned that there's a lot to take into consideration. And I think one of the things I think about the awesome wife moment in particular, that really stands out to me is that this, going through this exercise with you, and, I will, till the day I die, love my wife and proclaim her awesomeness, right? Like that will never change. But we also at the same time lead incredibly busy lives, and we're moving in 1,000 different directions, and we have a million different things going on. Anybody with young kids is sort of stuck in that space. And so I think for me, one of the really amazing things was to have an opportunity. This called me to step back a little bit, right? And to slow down. And it doesn't necessarily just belong there. It belongs in other spaces as well. And I want to try to carry that on. Just really identifying and recognizing these really special moments when, her beauty or someone else's beauty is really shining through. And it happens all the time. I just am too darn caught up with, these reports, or my kids screaming at me and one another, or the lawn that needs to be mowed, to really take a moment to honor and appreciate that. So I hope, right, and it's a lot easier said than done, but I hope moving forward that I'll continue to kind of have that space to think a little bit, and I've learned that that's important to me through this process. So thank you for asking that. Do you have something for yourself?
It's funny. I could not agree more with what you just said. And I think you and I share in that mutual takeaway. I think, well, let me ask rather than assume, would you say that the most comments you get from folks that you've spoken to about the podcast, would you say that a lot of them or a majority of them talk about the awesome wife moment?
A significant portion talk about that. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I'm
especially my mother-in-law.
Well, she's got some pride in there too.
I'm just kidding.
No, that's actually one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that people talk about that. If they bring it up, not everybody knows or listens, but if they bring up the podcast, that's almost almost always one of the first things that they talk about. And I think, to your point, I think it's not so much like it goes deeper than, oh, isn't that just a nice thing to talk about your wife? It's actually like, you know what? I didn't really think about the idea that I should probably acknowledge that. I should be more present. Like you're saying, be more present in the moment of just acknowledging how lucky we are, how great they are. And, it goes deeper than just paying someone a compliment. Yeah. In terms of my takeaways about myself, the other thing that I think I've found is that in a conversation, I think this format is really valuable because we've talked about this before, there's a little bit of a buffer. And when you're asking a question or when you're answering someone, this platform kind of forces you to stop. It forces you to pump that brake. And I've learned in myself in acknowledging that I could be a better listener in the sense that just slow down. If somebody's telling you who they are or something about their story, the longer you let them go, the more you will gain in gleaning something about them, learning something. Maybe people have felt this way about me in the past or currently, but just shut up. Just, you know what I mean? Like Travis, just zip it and see what happens. You know what I mean? So that was one of the takeaways for me too, as I think about this last season. Is like it purposefully made me shut up. It's just like, okay, listen.
Those are two great lessons right there that both of us got: is living a more intentional life and listening a little bit more deeply. Totally, yeah.
Tim, can you talk to us? Like, you already foreshadowed it, so you get to get the ball off the tee.
Let's do this, man. So listen, we made it through season 1. We made it through in such a way that we are not totally we are unscathed. We're continuing on, right? So we're looking forward to season 2, and we're taking it in a new direction. This past season, as you all know, we brought in a lot of people who were talking to us about their careers and about transitions and about the ups and downs of that journey. In our next season, we're going to try something really, really new. And we want to do a couple things here. The theme of the season, we're still working out the title, so stay tuned on that one. But what we want to do is we want to talk to people. And we especially would love to get people on this podcast who we don't know, right? Mm-hmm. Some new faces and names that we don't know. So those of you out there listening, hold tight. And if you feel that you're aligned with this, please do reach out and let us know through the email. So what we're looking for are people who take on, outside of their normal day-to-day activity, some sort of, they tackle things that they're passionate about, right? They go after certain things that really, really mean something to them. They bring them life that, enrich who they are as people. So I'm going to give a couple quick examples. I have a buddy in town named Isaac. And Isaac, if you're listening, I'm going to be calling you in the near future, who is an amazing guy. Isaac does IT as his day job. He's got kids, so he's a busy dude. And on the side, however, Isaac runs the astronomy club in town. This is something that I know feeds and fuels him, right? He's got all of these people who on a monthly basis, they get together. And that's just the monthly get-togethers. He's doing so much more. He's a NASA ambassador and is doing amazing work in that field. So we want to talk to people like Isaac who are doing this stuff. We want to talk to people like, and I'm just throwing out another example, a gentleman named Benji who lives in the neighborhood who works for Coca-Cola. But guess what? When he's not working, he's in his garage building a car.
Wow. Nice. That's awesome.
So what is your passion, right? What is it that really gets you going and excites you? And let's share those awesome stories with other people. That's our goal for season 2. I think, Trav, I captured it about as fully as we would want at this point. But we really would love to bring some new voices and faces into this circle. So please do reach out if you'd like to share that with us. If you got something interesting to share, give us a shout.
Yeah, and to give us a shout is TimTravPodcast at gmail.com. That's TimTravPodcast at gmail.com. So please, any and all messages, any inspirations you may have, any ruminations, anything, send it our way.
Yeah. So very excited. We expect that'll launch sometime in the new year, right? maybe early in the new year. So stay tuned for that. But, we are going to be taking a bit of a pause right now as we head into the holiday season. So no new episodes coming out for the rest of November or December, of course.
Right. And also we need some time to record those awesome interviews. So
yeah. All right, man, we're done.
We're done. Look at that. 13 episodes in, Tim. I'm very proud of us. I hope you are too.
Yeah. It's been an absolute blast. It's brought a lot of joy to my life. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Until next time.
Talk soon, man.
Tim and Travis on the mic, talking life and what's it like. Middle age, it's quite the ride. Finding joy and chasing pride. Career dreams and daily grind. Funny moments that we find. Letting go of yesterday, making paths along the way. Middle age. Middle-aged mayhem, breaking free, finding out who we can be, laughing, learning all the time. Tim and Travis in their prime. Every step a brand new plan, older, wiser, still we stand, navigating through the years, sharing stories, laughs and cheers. Free, finding out who we can be, laughing, learning all the time. Tim and Travis in their prime. Every step a brand new plan, older, wiser, still we stand, navigating through the years, sharing stories, laughs and cheers. Middle age, enjoying the fun, middle age has just begun. Tim and Travis lead the way, every episode will slay.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. Most of what I do is smart. How bad is it? I'm just curious.
I can never remember. I think that was good.
Just get to it, you idiot. Perfect. My only core competency is handsomeness.